My name was Harlan Whitaker, known to the squad as Tex, a name that stuck since I shipped out from Fort Worth in the spring of 1942. Back then, at 25, the war seemed like something pulled straight from the newsreels. Tanks rolling across sunlit fields, planes diving with heroic roars, and victory just a matter of grit and good aim. But by February of 1945, at 38, those illusions had long since burned away, leaving behind a man etched with scars, a jagged line across my left cheek from a Japanese bayonet on Guadalcanal that had come within a whisper of the carotid, and a persistent limp in my right knee from hurling myself into a shell crater on Tarawa's blood-soaked reef. I was Sergeant Tex Whitaker now, commanding what scraps remained of a platoon in the 5th Marine Division, knee-deep in the choking black volcanic ash of Iwo Jima. Admiral Chester Nimitz had sold the island to the High Command as a vital stepping stone, a barren 8-square-mile rock that would give our P-51 Mustangs the range to escort B-29 superfortresses back from raids over Tokyo, turning the tide in the Pacific. To us grunts, though, it was nothing more than a fortified nightmare, a place where the earth itself seemed to conspire against you, where every ridge hid a bunker and every shadow concealed a tunnel mouth. The Japanese had prepared for us with a thoroughness that bordered on madness. Under Lieutenant General Tadamaki Kurabayashi, a man who had studied every American landing from Tarawa to Peleliu, they had burrowed into the island's soft, tough rock like termites into rotten wood. Over 20,000 troops, fanatics to the core, indoctrinated with the Emperor's divine will, had carved out a labyrinth of some 18 miles of tunnels, interconnected bunkers, and hidden artillery positions. These weren't hasty defenses. They were a subterranean fortress, complete with hospitals, command posts, and ammunition dumps deep underground, ventilated by shafts that blended seamlessly with the island's natural fumaroles. Our preliminary bombardment had been ferocious. 72 straight hours of hellfire from battleships like the USS Missouri and USS Wisconsin, their 16-inch guns hurling shells that turned the surface to a moonscape of craters and shattered obsidian. But the Japs had gone deeper, emerging only to pour calculated fire from pillboxes camouflaged with ash and scrub, their Type 99 machine guns and 47mm anti-tank cannons zeroed on the invasion beaches with lethal precision. No wild bonsai charges here, as on other islands, just methodical slaughter, designed to bleed us dry before we could gain a foothold. We hit the beaches on the morning of February 19th, the first wave of some 70,000 Marines churning ashore in LVT Amtraks that ground through the surf under a sky blackened by smoke and the thunder of our own artillery. The ash was unlike anything I'd known. Fine, black powder that sucked at your boots like quicksand, turning every step into a battle and coating your throat with the taste of sulfur and cordite. Casualties mounted before the ramps even dropped. Nearly 700 on the first day alone. Men cut down by enfilading fire from Suribachi slopes or buried alive when their vehicles bogged in the loose grit. My platoon had started strong at 25 souls, a mix of veterans from the Solomons and fresh boots from Camp Pendleton. But by the time we consolidated on the first terrace, we were down to 16. Ramirez went in the surf, caught in a crossfire that fused sand to glass around his body. Old Sarge Wilkins, my predecessor, took a 75mm mortar round to the chest while bellowing orders over the chaos, his voice silenced mid-sentence. Suribachi loomed to the north, a 500-foot extinct volcano venting steam like a sullen beast, its lower slopes already crawling with our dead and the glint of Japanese steel. Battalion's orders were clear. Push east along the ridges, probe for bunker mouths, and seal the vents before the main assault on the mountain could begin. Every inch cost lives, but without airfields here, the B-29s from the Marianas flew blind, and Tokyo remained out of reach. It was into this grinder that Private Elias Thorne arrived, a replacement scrape from the transport USS Mount McKinley, 19 years old and looking even younger. He stepped off the Amtrak as if reporting for a parade back stateside. His herringbone twill utilities starched crisp against the carnage, the tide line littered with bloated bodies and shattered landing craft, the air heavy with the acrid bite of high explosives and the low moan of the wounded. His file marked him as a coal miner from Logan, West Virginia, one of those hollow deep towns where boys learned to swing picks before they grew beards, navigating drifts blacker than midnight with nothing but a carbide lamp and gut instinct. But Thorne looked nothing like a miner. 5'4" on his best day, maybe 120 pounds dripping wet, with a narrow frame that seemed built for slipping through fence gaps rather than wrestling or cars. His eyes were a clear, startled blue, darting like a cornered animal's, and his hands, small, pale, uncalloused, clutched his brand-new M1 Garand as if it might bite. Lieutenant Hargrove, a Boston Brahmin with West Point polish tempered by Sicily's mud, marched him over to me while I leaned against a crate of .30 caliber ammo belts, spitting a wad of tobacco into the surf. "Sergeant Whitaker," Hargrove said, his voice clipped and precise, the kind that came from too many classroom drills. "Private Thorne fills Ramirez's slot. Get him squared away." I straightened, wiping ash from my face, and sized him up. He stood there with shoulders hunched, trying not to stare at the tide's grim harvest or the distant thump of our 105mm howitzers walking fire up the slopes toward Airfield No. 1. The squad was scattered along the makeshift beachhead. Corporal Jimmy Russo, Brooklyn to us all, squatting by a poncho lean-to, methodically cleaning the bolt on his Browning automatic rifle with a rag gone gray from use. Doc Hale, the 32-year-old ex-pharmacist from Philadelphia, bandaging a shrapnel gash on his own forearm while muttering half-remembered Bible verses under his breath. Texarkana Jenkins, the broad-shouldered Arkansas farm boy who cradled his Garand like a favored child, his perpetual half-grin smeared with ash but unbroken. Quiet Eddie from Seattle, fiddling with the drum magazine on his Thompson submachine gun. Sparks, the radio man, cursing a tangled antenna that refused to stand straight in the wind. And the rest, a handful of olive-drab phantoms too weary for talk. Thorne dropped his pack with a soft thud that puffed ash into the air, and in the same motion, the sling on his Garand caught on a strap. The rifle slipped from his grasp, tumbling barrel first onto the black sand, and skidding a good 10 feet before Texarkana scooped it up with a low rumble of laughter that held no malice, only the rough kindness of men who had seen too many greenhorns stumble. "Easy there, Shortstack," Texarkana said, handing it back. "That Garand's your shadow now. Treat her gentle." Thorne's face went the color of raw meat, flushing from his collar to his hairline. He snatched the rifle and clutched it to his chest as if it were a shield against the world, mumbling something lost in the wind about being sorry. The squad didn't break into outright laughter. They were too spent for that, their eyes hollowed by the grind. But the smirks flickered like embers in dry grass. Brooklyn spat a sunflower seed shell into the surf and shook his head, his Brooklyn accent thick as the mud we'd left behind on other islands. "First lesson, kid, the boomstick stays glued. Japs hear that clatter, they'll throw a party." I stepped in close then, close enough to catch the faint, clean scent of stateside soap clinging to him, a stark contrast to the brine and cordite that soaked the rest of us. "Listen up, Thorne," I said, my voice low and edged with the drawl that hadn't faded since Texas. "This isn't basic at Paris Island, where they let you fumble for show. You drop that piece again, and I'll use the stock to dig your foxhole, 6 feet deep, facing east." He nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon where Suribachi squatted like a clenched fist, but his fingers trembled on the Garand's stock, the wood still warm from the factory cosmoline. We fell in for inspection under the hulking shadow of a wrecked LVT, the air thick with the metallic tang of spent brass and the low rumble of diesel engines from supply tractors grinding inland. The sun beat down like a forge hammer on the sulphurous rock, turning the ash into a fine dust that clung to sweat and stung open wounds. Thorne fumbled his helmet straps, the chin cup flopping loose like a drunkard's hat. His pack rode crooked on those narrow shoulders, the entrenching tool dangling and clinking against his canteen with every shift. The bayonet sheath was reversed, the blade pointing inward toward his thigh as if he'd dressed in the dark. I prodded the tool with my boot, the sound echoing sharp. "Fix that rattle, Private. We're not here to play bells for the Emperor." "Yes, Sergeant," he stammered, fingers shaking as he cinched the straps, his voice carrying that slow Appalachian drawl, vowels stretched like taffy pulled in the hollers. The kid probably still pictured war as duty and apple pie, letters from home, fueling dreams of heroism. I'd seen his type before, boys who broke on the first real patrol, curling fetal while the world exploded around them, their screams drawing more fire than a flare. The inspection dragged on, me walking the line with bark corrections that came automatic after years in the Corps. Brooklyn's bar gleamed spotless, the bipod legs folded neat. Doc's aid kit bulged with sulfa packets and morphine syrettes. The man a quiet rock amid the storm. Texarkana's Garen bore a fresh nick in the stock from a ricochet the day before, but the action cycled smooth as silk. Thorne's setup was amateur hour. Sights canted off-center. Ammo pouches half-zipped. Bayonet scraping loud enough to pull a glare from Sparks, who was wrestling his antenna like it had a personal grudge. "You're a walking alarm, kid," I growled, close enough to see the pulse jump in his throat. "Small as you are, the Japs might take pity and toss you bananas instead of bullets." The squad let out a low ripple of chuckles, the sound dry and without joy, born of exhaustion more than cruelty. Thorne's cheeks burned hotter, but he held his eyes front, jaw clenched like he was biting down on river rock. It was a spark, that clench, better than tears, which I'd seen drown good men faster than a monsoon. But inside, the anger simmered. We'd buried 3 that very morning under hasty crosses of driftwood and crossed bayonets. Marines who'd humped with me from the Solomons. Not some coal rat runt who couldn't square his kit. What was Supply thinking, scraping the bottom of the barrel for Iwo? This rock didn't coddle the small, it ground them to dust. Hargrove dismissed us with a curt wave, turning back to his command post tent to radio battalion for the evening's patrol orders. "Get them dug in, Sergeant. Probe at dusk." I nodded, watching his retreating back. The lieutenant was solid, his polish from the point holding up under Sicily's grit, but islands like this stripped illusions quick. No map prepped you for the tunnel's endless dark or the screams that echoed from them like accusations. "All right, you sorry sons of bitches," I bellowed, voice carrying over the surf's crash and the distant whine of P-38 Lightnings on patrol. "Dig in. 2-man foxholes, chest deep at least. This ash won't bite, but the mortars will move." The squad scattered like smoke, entrenching tools flashing dull in the dying light. Iwo's soil was a curse, loose volcanic tuff that caved as fast as you scooped it, turning every hole into a Sisyphean labor that left you slick with sweat and coated in black grit that worked into every crease. Brooklyn and Doc paired off, their whole knee-deep already, trading grunts about Broadway shows they'd never see again. Texarkana and Eddie labored like a machine, the big man's heaves balanced by the Seattle kid's careful packing. Sparks claimed a rise for his radio, antenna wobbling like a drunk's finger in the breeze. Thorne I stuck with Texarkana, figuring the Arkansan could play nursemaid. But 10 minutes in, curses drifted over. Texarkana on his knees, sweat sheeting off him, while Thorne prodded the ash like it was pudding, his hole a pathetic ankle-deep scrape that a stiff breeze would fill. "What in Sam Hill are you doing, Thorne?" Texarkana boomed, wiping his brow with a forearm gone black. "This ain't a sandbox back home. Put your back in it." "I'm trying, Corporal," Thorne gasped, small chest heaving, tools slipping to clang against buried rock. "This stuff, it just falls back in. That's the game, kid," Texarkana replied, rolling his eyes heavenward. "Angle the sides, pack the walls, like digging post holes for the fence line." Thorne nodded, but his next scoop caved the wall, burying his boot to the calf in sliding grit. He yanked free, spraying ash in a cloud, and that was when the first shell truly announced itself. A Japanese 75mm, screaming down from the ridges like a banshee with a grudge. The world flashed white. Crump of impact 50 yards left, a shower of jagged rock, and shrapnel rattling off helmets like hail on tin. "Incoming," I roared, diving into my hole beside Brooklyn, the squad hitting the deck in a ripple of practiced motion. But not Thorne. He froze mid-scoop, tool gripped white-knuckled, eyes locked on the rising smoke plume, mouth agape as if the shell itself had asked for directions. "Move, you idiot." Texarkana lunged, tackling the kid into their half-formed scrape just as the next round hammered 30 yards out, blasting a crater that peppered us with stinging grit. Thorne lay there curled fetal, gasping like a landed fish, ash caking his hair and tears carving clean tracks down his cheeks. Not a full sob, but close enough to twist something in the gut. Texarkana hauled him up by the collar, shaking him gentle but firm. "You deaf, boy? Whistle means dirt now. Thorne nodded, eyes wild as a spooked colt, the ash and tears mixing to mud on his face. Sorry, Corporal. I just froze. First one's always a mind-bender, Texarkana said, clapping his shoulder hard enough to rattle teeth. Shake it off, we all been there. I watched from my hole, heart still pounding like a trip hammer, the barrage lifting after 3 rounds. Light work by Iwo standards, where a single-knee mortar could turn a platoon to mist. That freeze could have ended him right there. Easy pickings for a sniper's scope scanning the beach. The kid was a magnet for disaster, and in a place where every mistake rippled out to kill your brothers, we couldn't carry that weight. Not with Suribachi's shadow lengthening and Nimitz demanding the flag on top by week's end, no matter the blood price. I crawled over once the air cleared, looming above their pathetic hole like judgment. Thorne, on your feet. He scrambled up, tool still clutched like a lifeline. Sergeant, you call that a hole? I jabbed a boot into the mess, sending a cascade of grit sliding back. Looks like a gopher took a dump. Deeper, private, or next time the Japs'll use it for an ashtray, with you as the butt. Dig till you taste China, or I'll plant you there myself. Yes, sir. He went back to it, swings more frenzy than form. The squad working silent around him, the mood soured like milk left in the sun. Brooklyn shot me a look over his entrenching tool, the kind that said without words, Sarge, this one's going to get us all killed. Dusk fell heavy, the sky bruising purple over the sulfur flats as we humped inland for patrol. A mile push to probe the ridges for bunker mouths. Hargrove leading with his map case under one arm, but me on point with Brooklyn and Texarkana flanking. Thorne brought up the rear with Doc, his pack still rattling like maracas until I dropped back once and hissed at him to cinch the damn tool tight. Quiet. Thorne, you want to wake the whole Emperor's court. His voice cracked boyish and scared in reply, a whisper of sorry lost in the wind. We were in the Badlands now, jumbled rocks and ash dunes that hid crevices deep enough to swallow a man whole, the air thick with the lingering tang of cordite and the faint rot of unburied dead drifting on the breeze. Somewhere ahead, a bunker coughed to life, a concrete pillbox, steel-shuttered and squat, spitting tracers that lit the night like malevolent fireflies from hell's own lantern. We froze, bellies to the ground, as the bursts walked past us, close enough to singe whiskers and raise the hair on your neck. Hargrove signaled halt in a shallow draw that might have been a dry streambed once. The squad bellied up in a loose skirmish line. Eyes sharp. I murmured, the words barely carrying over the squad's controlled breaths. Thorne, cover the rear. Anything moves, you ping it, but hold till confirmed. The kid nodded from his position, but his Garand trembled as he raised it to his shoulder, hands shaking like he had the palsy from some long-forgotten fever. Brooklyn let out a low chuckle, the sound muffled against the ash. Easy, runt. That trigger's touchier than a debutante. We waited, ears straining against the night's deceptive quiet. The bunker had gone silent, but Japs didn't quit. They lurked, patient as spiders in the web. Then it came, a rustle faint as paper tearing, off to the right flank. Wind in the scrub, or a rat. My gut said neither. Trouble, pure and simple. Contact, I breathed. Garand coming up smooth, sights settling on the gloom. Thorne, take a bead, slow. He did, sighting down the barrel of his Garand. 8 rounds of 30-06 waiting in the end block clip, the telltale ping ready to announce each cycle. But the shadow was distant, maybe 200 yards out, flickering in and out of the scrub like a ghost in fog. Thorne squeezed the trigger, crack, and the muzzle flash lit his face pale and pinched, the round kicking up ash far to the left, a clean miss. Too far, kid, hold. Texarkana hissed from his cover, voice urgent, but low. But panic had its hooks in. Thorne worked the bolt with a metallic ping and fired again. Crack. High this time, the shot plowing into the ridge above. The shadow vanished, swallowed by the dark, but the bunker woke fully now, its machine gun stitching the draw with bursts that whined off rocks like enraged hornets, tracers arcing in glowing red lines that turned night to day. Down, I roared, shoving Brooklyn flat into the ash as the squad scrambled for what cover the draw offered. Thorne stood half upright, firing blind into the void. Third shot, fourth, his clip dumping spent brass in a frantic semicircle that glittered briefly in the flashes. By the 5th round, the shadow was long gone. But so was our stealth. The bunker's tracers walked the line, one clipping a boulder inches from Doc's position, sending Spall pinging off his helmet and drawing a sharp yelp as he clutched at his leg. Not penetrated, just grazed by the flying chips. Cease fire, damn it. I lunged backward through the chaos, tackling Thorne into the ash with a bone-jarring thud that knocked the wind from him, his eyes wide with raw terror as I pinned him down, face inches from his. You just painted us bright as a Christmas tree, you little fool. 5 rounds pissed away on phantoms. Sergeant, I thought. I saw, he gasped, struggling under my weight, small and wiry as a ferret in a trap. You thought wrong, I snarled, hauling him up by the collar and shaking him until his helmet flopped loose, the squad covering our position with controlled bursts from Brooklyn's bar and Doc's carbine pops. The bunker chattered back, pinning us in the draw that had turned from shelter to shooting gallery in seconds. Hargrove low-crawled up through the din, face grim under the helmet's shadow. Whitaker, get us out, flank left now. I nodded sharp, shoving Thorne toward the rear of the line. You, stay low and shut your trap. One more wrong twitch, and I'll feed you to that pillbox personally. We low-crawled out inch by agonizing inch, the kid bringing up the rear with breaths coming in stifled sobs he tried to swallow. Then the sniper spoke. A single Mauser crack that zipped past my ear close enough to part hair, the wind of it hot on my skin. I dove left into a cleft, but Thorne froze again, his silhouette etched against the ash's faint glow from distant flares. Thorne, drop. I bellowed, lunging back through the tracers to hit him with a shoulder that sent us both tumbling, the round thunking into the ground where his head had been a heartbeat before. We rolled into the cleft, hearts hammering like pistons, the sniper probing with 2 more cracks that chipped rock and sent shards flying like angry bees. Brooklyn laid down, suppressing fire from his bar, the weapon barking steady in controlled bursts that chewed at the darkness. You hit, Sarge? Nah. I grunted, dragging Thorne deeper into the shadow, his face ashen white, lips moving in what looked like silent prayer. The kid was small, yeah, slipped right under my arm like a sack of flour emptied too quick. I'd saved his bacon again, but it burned in my chest like bad coffee. Why him? Why this pint-sized liability when every round counted and every shadow hid death? The sniper lost interest after a few probing shots, the bunker's fire cooling as we ghosted away into the night, making it back to our lines by moonrise with no fresh meat on the butcher's slab, just egos bruised and tempers frayed. Hargrove's debrief was terse under the lantern's hooded glow. Good eyes out there, Sergeant. But next time, hold fire until it's confirmed. We can't afford fireworks. I nodded, but my glare fixed on Thorne, who slumped to his poncho without a word, head down like a whipped dog. Around the flickering lantern that night, light discipline be damned when morale hung by a thread. I passed out the K-rations, slabs of Spam and hard crackers, the usual gluey slop that stuck to your teeth like regret. The squad chewed in silence, a cigarette but making the rounds, the smoke a thin comfort against the night's chill. Texarkana broke the quiet first, his voice a low rumble. Back home, we'd call that the jitters, kid. It's the best of us. Thorne poked at his C-ration with a fork that bent under the pressure, his voice small and threaded with that hill twang. Never heard it like that before. The whistle, like it's coming for you personal. Doc leaned in, the father figure in our ragged family, his Philly accent softened by fatigue. First barrage bends the mind every time. Mine was Tarawa, 1943. Thought the whole ocean was boiling up to swallow us whole. Prayed like a sinner caught in the collection plate. Thorne nodded, leaning forward a fraction, eager to latch onto something familiar amid the alien grind. You're from Philly, right, Doc? Streets all paved back there, no ash in your lungs. Doc let out a dry chuckle, the sound like gravel under tires. Paved with enough potholes to lose a Jeep, kid. But yeah, a cheesesteak beats this Spam every time. The kid's face lit up for a moment, the first real spark since landing, as he leaned in closer. Got a girl waiting in Logan. Writes about the mines shutting down, folks hurting bad. Says she's saving for a ring, working double shifts at the cannery. He pulled a crumpled envelope from his breast pocket. The paper yellowed and creased like an old map, and unfolded it with the care of handling glass. The squad went still, The only sound the distant boom of naval shells offshore. Thorne read aloud in a soft voice, the words carrying like a fragile thread. Dear Eli, the hollers are quiet without your laugh echoing off the rocks. Daddy says the war will make a man of you yet. Come home soon so we can sit by the creek again. Love, Clara. Texarkana grunted around a mouthful of cracker, his big frame shifting in the ash. Sweet deal, kid. Mine's from a gal in Little Rock, talks babies and a farm plot. Hell, I'd settle for just getting off this rock. Thorne beamed for a heartbeat, folding the letter away with reverence. You all get letters too? What's the best one say? Something to keep the dark at bay? The silence stretched thin then, broken only by the crackle of the lantern wick. Brooklyn stared at his boots, scuffed and caked. Sparks fiddled with his radio dials, chasing ghosts in the static. Doc cleared his throat, eyes distant. Not tonight, kid. It's been a long one. The shutdown hit Thorne like a cold wave, the invisible wall slamming down between greenhorn and veteran. He tried once more, turning those blue eyes my way. Sergeant Tex? You're from Texas, right? Ever miss the plains out there? Bet they're wide as this sky, but without the, the rest. I chewed my cracker slow, eyes hard on the horizon where Suribachi bulked black against the stars. Miss it? Kid, I miss a cold beer and a bunk that doesn't leak. But questions like that? Save them for mail call. We've got real work tomorrow, not chit-chat to chase the shadows. His face fell, shoulders slumping inward, the letter tucked away like a secret wound. He poked at his ration again, appetite fled, and the squad drifted off to their holes one by one, murmurs fading into the night's hum. I took the last watch, perched on a jagged outcrop with my Garand across my knees, the woodstock warm from my grip. The night was alive with its own rhythm, the distant crump of naval shells arching toward the ridges, the rustle of wind through sparse scrub that somehow clung to the ash, the low drone of P-38 lightnings on night patrol overhead like angry hornets in the dark. Iwo never truly slept. It waited, breathing slow and malevolent from its thousand vents. But my thoughts circled back to Thorne, small and scared and soft in ways that had no place here. The dropped rifle on the beach, the freeze under the barrage, the wasted rounds painting targets on our backs in the patrol, each a thread pulling the whole platoon toward unraveling. Tonight's sniper round? Pure dumb luck I'd reached him in time. Next one would take the back of his skull clean off, and I'd be the one pinning the letter home. Private Thorne died of inexperience in the line of duty. The file called him a miner, said he knew tunnels and black powder from the Logan drifts. But bull, that boy couldn't dig a proper foxhole, let alone spot a bunker mouth in the gloom. He was dead weight, dragging us down into the ash with him, and I'd seen it play out before. On Guadalcanal, a kid from Ohio panicked in a bonsai rush, bolted the wrong way, and drew a whole squad into a kill zone ringed with Nambus. We lost 4 that night, good men with families waiting stateside. No, not on my watch. I'd grind him down slow, harsh words at inspection, extra duty on the wire details, whatever it took to shape him or break him clean. Out here, with the Japs burrowed like ticks in the island's hide, sympathy was a luxury we couldn't afford, a weakness that got your brothers killed before the enemy even fired a shot. MacArthur had promised we'd link up in the Philippines next, swinging the big hammer against the Emperor's remnants. But first we had to crack this particular nut. And nuts like Thorne? They cracked easiest, spilling their insides for the crows. That was the hard truth of it. Sergeant Tex Whitaker had no room for burdens on Iwo Jima, not with the bunkers yawning like graves and the Japs eternal in their holes. 1945 was our year. Nimitz had sworn it from Pearl, the pivot that would end the Pacific War by Christmas. But for Thorne, the small man from the hollers, it was only just beginning to hurt, the Forge's first kiss burning away the boy he'd been. The next morning broke under a fine, stinging rain that turned the ash to a clinging slurry, sucking at boots and weighing down packs like lead. We humped supplies forward under Hargrove's watchful eye, a work detail threading the first terrace toward a blasted coral outcrop that served as forward command post, ringed in sandbags and concertina wire that snagged sleeves like eager fingers. Thorne carried a crate of fragmentation grenades, the wooden box too bulky for his frame, straps biting into shoulders already raw from the landing. He staggered once, the edge tipping toward a nearby shell hole filled with brackish water and debris, and I lunged to steady it, my growl low. "Watch it, runt. Those frags don't sprout from trees." His voice came hoarse, eyes ringed dark from a night of fitful sleep broken by distant probes. The squad marched in loose rhythm, boots sucking mud with each step, but Thorne's were offbeat, that persistent clink from a loose buckle on his canteen giving him away. I dropped back twice, fixing it silent with rough fingers on the cold metal. He flinched at the touch but said nothing, head down against the drizzle. We offloaded at the CP, a jagged shelf of coral scarred by shrapnel, where Marines from another platoon swapped low tails around a smoldering ration heater. A tunnel collapsed that had buried a whole flamethrower team alive, their screams echoing for hours through the vents before fading to silence. Thorne listened with eyes wide, questions bubbling behind his lips, but bitten back for once. Smart. We're learning caution the hard way. Lunch was cold sea rations under a stretched poncho, the rain drumming steady on the canvas like impatient fingers. Brooklyn dealt a hand of poker with 30 calories clips for steaks, Doc folding early to sketch a letter home on the back of a ration wrapper. Thorne edged and hesitant, and they let him sit, dealing him cards he fumbled with those small hands, concentrating fierce on the faces. He bluffed a pot on luck alone, the squad whooping soft in surprise. "Beginner's edge," Texarkana said with a grin. "Don't let it swell your head, kid." For a brief span, he fit, laughing tentative, ash-streaked face alight with something like belonging. Then a shell whistled close, crumping behind the ridge in a plume of black, and the game shattered, poncho flapping as everyone dove for cover. Thorne hit the deck but clipped the grenade crate in his scramble, spilling lemons into the mud like forgotten toys. "God damn," I muttered, lunging to scoop them frantic, one rolling toward the CP wire with its pins still intact, live and lethal. Hard in my throat, I pinned it under my boot, breath held until the danger passed. The squad stared. Sparks let out a low whistle. "Close shave, Sarge." Thorne knelt in the slurry, face drained white. "Sergeant, I." "Shut it," I said, standing slow, mud to my elbows. "Just shut it and dig, kid. You're poison enough today without adding spark to the fire." He did, silent through the afternoon slog, filling sandbags, stacking wire rolls under the relentless rain that turned everything slick and heavy. His foxhole for the night came out shallow again, water pooling ankle-deep by dark, and he shivered in it with Clara's letter clutched like a talisman against the cold seeping up from the earth. I patrolled the lines as twilight deepened, Garen slung low across my back, bayonet fixed like a silent promise. Thoughts churned slow. Burden, yes, but something nagged at the edges, that offhand comment about the crevasse props, the way he'd eyed the rock like it whispered secrets. Minor blood ran in him, perhaps, the kind that felt the give in stone before it crumbled. Or maybe just wishful thinking from a Sarge too tired to hope. Either way, he had to prove it, or the island would claim him quiet. Iwo didn't suffer fools. It ground them fine and scattered the dust. 2 nights later came the real test. A deep night recon to skirt the outer bunkers and map vents for the demo teams. Hargrove tapping me for lead with Brooklyn on the bar for support, Doc carrying meds, Texarkana and Sparks filling the flanks, and Thorne slotted rear to learn the ropes or break trying. We ghosted out under heavy cloud cover, faces blackened with charcoal from burned ration cans, bayonets fixed and Garens held low to muffle the slings. The ash deadened our steps, but Thorne's breath came rasping loud, edged with the panic that hadn't fully burned off from the beach. Half a mile in, we hit the bad ground. Jagged lava flows sharp as broken glass underfoot, forcing us to pick paths like threading a needle in the gloom. I signaled halt at a crevasse, peering down into the black maw where wind moaned up like trapped souls. "Mark it for Sparks," I whispered. "Possible shaft, deep one." Thorne crept up unbidden, flicking his flashlight dim against orders but quick as a cat. "Sarge, see the props?" Bamboo lashed over coral chunks, like a mine at it back home. "Narrow gauge, maybe for hand carts hauling supplies." I knocked the beam down sharp, the light dying instant. "Stow that glow, fool. It'll draw every eye on the ridge." "But, yeah, get it sketched." He nodded eager now, tracing lines on his pad with a pencil nub stubbed short from use. small hands steady for the first time, precise as a draftsman. The squad waited tense, ears cocked to the dark, breaths synced shallow. Then the rustle came, left flank this time, deliberate, human low. I froze, Garand rising smooth to my shoulder. Shadow detached, rising slow with rifle glint, catching faint starlight. Contact. I breathed, the word barely out before the scout's Arasaka cracked first, the round clipping sparks antenna in a shower of sparks that lit the crevasse like a flare. Fire. Chaos unfolded in the confined space. Brooklyn's bar roared to life, stitching the shadow with a line of 30 calories that thudded home, the figure crumpling silent into the ash. But the shot woke the nest proper. 50 yards east, a bunker mouth yacht open, its Type 92 machine gun chattering to life. 7mm bullets lashing the crevasse walls and turning rock to stinging dust. We dove for what cover the floes offered, knees biting into razor edges that sliced through trousers. Thorne hit last, tumbling silent into a fold of his own making. I covered him with a crack from my Garand, the shot missing wide in the flash's bloom. The MG pinned us hard, tracers glowing hell-red lines that seared the night, forcing us flat as the bursts walked the line. Flank right now? I yelled over the din. Texarkana low-crawling forward to lob a frag into the nest's throat. Boom rattling the air, shrapnel whining harmless overhead. The gun faltered, barrel smoke curling, but it wasn't silenced, just stunned. Doc hissed from his cover. Sarge, leg. He's grazed. I glanced back, Thorne curled tight in his fold, trousers torn ragged, blood welling slow from a shallow furrow along the calf. Not arterial, thank Christ, but ugly enough to slow him, the kind of wound that festered quick in the tropics. The kid bit his lip bloody to stifle a gasp, eyes locked on mine. Fear there, pure and animal, but holding, no buckle. Hang on, runt, I said, ripping a sulfa pouch from Doc's kit and dusting the gash white. Pressure it down, don't you faint on me now. He nodded, small hand clamping the dressing tight, color draining but resolve sticking. Tougher than he looked, that one, minor grit peeking through the green. The MG renewed, forcing our retreat in painful leapfrog, Brooklyn covering each bound with bursts from his bar. Thorne limped between Texarkana and me, his weight light as an empty pack, a small mercy in the drag. His gasps came steady, no whine or plea, just the measured pull of air through gritted teeth. We made lines by false dawn, the sky lightning gray over the sulfur flats. Doc stitched the gash under a hooded lantern, 4 neat pulls of catgut, a syringe of morphine dulling the edge to a throb. You'll walk on it, kid, but take it easy tomorrow, no heroics. Thorne managed a wan grin through the haze, sweat beading his brow. Thanks. Document felt like fire ants crawling, but nothing compared to slag burns back in the drifts. Those bite deeper. The squad clapped his back gentle as they could, a rare softness in the rough. Even Brooklyn muttered, not bad, short stack. You kept your head when the lead flew. I watched silent from the shadows, the kid's words sticking like burrs. Frozen less this time, that shaft marked smart with his eye for props and gauge. The wound. Bad luck, not fault, shadow in wrong place. But the drop on the beach, the rattle on patrol, the wasted shots lighting us up, burden lingered heavy, a stone in the boot. That night, rain easing to a mist, I found him by the CP, letter unfolded under the lantern's strict hood, Clara's script read soft in the glow. You ever write home, Sergeant? He asked, voice tentative but curious. I squatted beside him, lighting a lucky, the first in days, pinched small to nurse the drag. Yeah, tell him the pretty lies. All fine here, send socks. The truth would break him faster than a bayonet. He nodded slow, folding the paper with care. Clara worries in her letters. Says I'm too small for this kind of work, like I'll slip through the cracks before the fight even starts. I exhaled smoke slow, the curls stinging my eyes, and met his gaze square. Size ain't the measure, Thorne. It's whether you panic when the crack's close in. That decides if you come out the other side. His jaw set firm, a line of determination etching his young face. Won't panic next time, Sarge. Swear it on the hollers. I grunted, standing with a creak from my knee. See that you don't. We push at dawn, bunkers waiting, and they don't forgive second chances. He saluted clumsy but crisp, small hand snapping sharp against his brow. I returned it and walked away into the mist, the kid's spark buried deep but flickering now. Iwo would test it raw, hammer it flat, or forge it true. And if he buckled under the weight? God help him. Sergeant Tex didn't haul dead weight forever, not when the platoon depended on every breath. The days blurred into a relentless grind after that. Patrols bleeding into entrenching details, watches stretching into the small hours under Suribachi's brooding shadow. Thorne mended slow, favoring the good leg with a limp that shortened his stride, but he pulled his weight without complaint, hauling jerry cans of fresh water from the desalination trucks, cleaning rifles until the bolts gleamed slick, even spotting a vent the engineers had overlooked during a morning sweep, his miner's eye picking out the faint steam trace amid the ash drifts. The small guy slipped through tight spots easy, his frame contorting where bulkier men wedged fast, like he'd been built for the island's cruel geometry. The squad warmed to him by fractions. Texarkana sharing strips of jerky from his care package, Doc slipping an extra surette for the rough nights, when the morphine haze chased ghosts. But me? The cynic ran bone deep, forged in too many dawns counting the empty bunks. I'd seen sparks like his flare bright, then fizzle out, leaving only ash and regret. One evening, after a raid that nailed a spur pillbox with satchel charges and no losses to show for it, Hargrove pulled me aside at the CP, his face shadowed by the lantern's hood. Thorne shaping up, Whitaker? Battalion's calling for all hands on the Suribachi push. We can't afford weak links with the flag run looming. I spat into the ash, the glob swallowed quick. He's trying, sir. Small, but scrappy. Miner's blood runs in him, knows the rocks give. Hargrove nodded, rubbing his jaw where stubble rasped. Good enough. MacArthur's eyes are on the Pacific Theater, one slip, and the whole chain buckles. Weak. That word stuck, echoing in my head as night fell with a storm that raged, thunder masking Japanese probes along the wire. Thorne's hole flooded again under the deluge, water rising knee-deep despite his frantic bailing. The letter safe under his helmet like a holy relic. I tossed him a spare poncho liner from my kit. Dry out what you can, Runt. Tomorrow's the push, bigger than the last. Thanks, Sarge, he said, eyes grateful but shadowed deep with the homesickness that gnawed at us all, a constant ache under the skin. I lay awake in my own hole as rain drummed the poncho overhead, thoughts turning to the bunkers ahead, tunnels veining the island like corrupted blood, Japs eternal in their depths, waiting to cough fire. Thorne would fit those cracks, small as sin, his frame sliding where we couldn't follow. But fit to fight them? The jury hung out, verdict pending in the forge's heat. Dawn brought the push, orders hot from battalion. Clear the central ridge, seal vents before the mountain swallowed us whole. The squad humped heavy, flamethrowers slung awkward, demo satchels bulging with Composition B, Garen's hot-chambered and ready. Thorne slotted center, pack steady for once. No clink to betray him in the mist. Halfway up, ambush struck from a cave mouth. Japanese shadows bursting with bayonets gleaming dull, a silent bonsai that hit like a wave without the scream. Steel clashed in the confined fold, grunts and thuds echoing off rock as I thrust home with my bayonet, twisting to clear. Thorne cornered against a boulder, small frame dodging frantic, his Garen clubbed like a pickaxe to crack a skull with a sickening thud. He froze then, face twisting in horror at the up-close kill, eyes locked on the body and the red bayonet tip. Thorne, I hauled him back through zipping bullets. Move or die now. He snapped to, firing with a ping crack that dropped another shadow. The squad rallied, Brooklyn's bar clearing the cave in bursts that echoed thunder. We sealed it with charges thumping deep, the rock groaning in reply. Back at lines, Thorne shook under Doc's morphine calm, the first close kill haunting his eyes. Felt wrong, he murmured, voice small. Like murdering a man, not fighting one. War's murder all the way down. Runt, I said, clapping his shoulder light, but firm. You did good, held when it counted. He looked up, spark flickering stronger. The burden cracked a hair, perhaps, lightning just enough. But Iwo ground on relentless. Losses mounted, sparks winged on the next patrol, a graze that sidelined him cursing. Eddie gone to a sniper's clean shot. No trace, but a helmet left smoking in the ash. Squad thinned to 12, shadows stretching long. Thorne pulled extra shifts scouting tight spots, his size turning curse to tool, the squad dubbing him Mole, with affection edging in like dawn light. Doubt lingered still, a scar's itch, that post-kill freeze echoing the beach's panic, small body harboring fears big as the island. One night under clear stars, I found him riding by lantern glow, Clara's letter propped like a guide. "Tell me about home," I said, surprising myself with the pull. He looked up, faint smile cracking ash. "Hollers green as envy, Sarge, rivers cold enough to numb the sin. Yours?" "Plains flat as a promise, wind mean as a debt collector." I sat, sharing a smoke's drag. "Miss it every breath you don't take." "Every one," he agreed, pause heavy. "But here, learning the weight." "Learn fast, Mole. Bunker's coming, deeper than any holler." He nodded, small but steady. Change brewed slow, but the burden eased fraction by fraction. The real shift loomed with orders for the bloody Knoll assault, tunnels linking to Suribachi's mountain heart. Hargrove mapped it as a fist-clenched ridge, pillboxes terraced on slopes, embrasures zeroed deadly. Artie prepped at 0500, naval guns walking in 16-inch wrath. We inserted post-barrage, probing vents to mark for demo. Thorne scouted ahead, slipping clefts to raise cairns quick, his frame melting into rock like born to it. First terrace cleared easy, pillbox door ajar and smoking faint. Second held rifle glint, Brooklyn suppressed with bar bursts, glass shattering inside, screams cut short. Crown hummed wrong. Too still, air thick with waiting. Flank erupted then, machine guns enfilading from saps hidden under ash, Type 92's chattering crossfire that stitched the air. Texarkana took thigh lead, bellowing down, dock bound at sulfa white. Radio antenna clipped silent by stray round. Left sap vomited shadows methodical, knee mortars arcing pineapples that bracketed our line in shrapnel hail. We cratered shallow in a lava bubble, bullets chipping rim like chisels. Thorne marked the main sap under center bunker, carts rumbling ammo deep, faint thunder in bone. Naval shells walked blind behind, friendly craters blooming earth shake. Japs closed without rush, bayonets low and patient, waves cresting lip in steel whispers. Knives parried thrusts, Garen stocks cracked jaws, but numbers pressed. 47mm from the pillbox traversed slow, shell racking with metallic snick. Next arc direct, fuse hissing doom. Crack came from deep thin, Garen ping distinct. Officer crumpling bunker rear, map fluttering ash. Yells guttural panicked, boots scuffing chaos. Internal grenade crumped, vents belching smoke dragon breath. Gun slewed wild, shell dumping short in harmless whomp. More methodical cracks, shadows felled like wheat. Low boom groaned rock below, hull buckling braces give. Japs faltered chain wide, firing mist blind into their own lines. Panic rippling officer shouts unanswered. We surged lip over, knives low and clubs high, gaining crown yard by bloody yard. Thorne's wire glinted taut then slack. He emerged soot black from a fold, hull derailed at wedged curve, carts jammed in spill of brass and powder. Squad held as flame teams rolled, M2-2S belching napalm into saps, turning tunnels to inferno royal. Medevac thumped in for Texarkana leg bad and Sparks arm mangled. Brooklyn splinted to line's rear. Hargrove staggered up haggard, flanks collapsed full, mountain counters pouring. Ghost and Vince turned tide. He noted, unseen hand deep, perhaps lost scout wedging braces like minor art. Thorne's marks held the thread, brasswood here. Night foxholes dug deep around seized bunker. He read Clara soft by lantern edge. Home floods eased, strikes one, rivet hands waiting. Island groaned low from giving braces, Vince whispering faint like held breath. Mop up blurred days after. Thermite sealing vents to cherry glow. Engineers probing ghost trails Thorne inked. Derail points precise. Brace fall sketched from echo feel. Replacements trickled. Amos Kansas farmer big but green. Vic Frisco radio man mouthy with live horn quick. Core endured. Doc eyes haunted kit refilled. Brooklyn crutched bar heirloom past. Ghost lingered whisper in patrols. Japs probes light. Saps wary clogged like clotted veins. One Eve's Suribachi shadow long. Hargrove briefed mountain push final. Megatunnels peak under, Hall's main seal, flag teams hold. Ghost play use, seems the thread. Deep scout you Thorne. Nod kid small grin, born at 4. Gut twisted I watched. Mirror ghost to mole, small dark wise. Ridge risk echo solo scent, proved blade. Gift ghosts now unpaid. Watch night, Garen knees across. Snored Thorne's soft hole next. Whispered Vince scuffle faint wind, or close ghost maybe. Hammered 4G woes. Black Thean breathe ghost, and sinners grateful we dawn waiting. Shadow stretched Suribachi's flats, ash across long as hammered assault the home. Fury Division's fifth weight, the under-cracking underbelly meaty mountains the run flag the Aviv it was tomorrow sundown by peak the atop whipping glory old wanted brass the saying battalion from whispers. Punched Tokyo to ticket 45/19's clean. But grinder the in down with Heart Mountain Suribachi's under snaking tunnels mega the with breath, last the over devil, the with haggling more like felt it victory like less. Brass and blood in cost the counting 38 Fort Worth from scarred Tex Whitaker Harlan Sergeant. Back 2 days crown Knowles the clawed weed breather, hour into panic Jap, turning Vince the in ghost that. Bad leg Texarkana for medevac buying sparks, and crutch like slung bar his splinted Brooklyn 4. Rest the for patch ragged and double collected always island the payback but ghost. Emperors the but yards for not fighting core the to fanatical Japs night cold and blacker fortress into bunkers the linking saps now deeper tunnels. CP forward the around ragged reformed squad the LVT recta from rigged lights flood under cruel glinting wire concertina blister correlate. Gaps the filled replacements. Doctor relation no hail Amos private states the from creased still utilities they're eager, but grass spring is green boots more couple a. Hell of outweigh talk heed that grin a, with already antenna busted radio man, Frisco mouthy Russo Vic corporal heirloom family, alike Vic to past bar his crutches on hobbling, but splinted leg Brooklyn. Doped he'd ghost the by hollowed eyes, but refilled kit hail dock held core. Close crater the in skulls clubbing from notched stock Garen's his badge purple hey. It to scabbed eye over gash taped, that leaner frame, small wisp Virginia West are moldy, and Thorne Elias private and fist Suribachi's under saps and bunkers Warren a complex mountain the push final the tracing pencil grease, knee is on unrolled map the spread broke, not bent steel point west holding, but haggard Hargrove lieutenant clipped voice said, he tomorrow in all battalions. Runs supply deep going have Japs mountain the under complex main the link tunnels. Engineers the for hold, Vince the seal, Knoll the take we deep. Going run supply have Japs. Roots like underground snaking Vince and approaches the on zeroed embrasures folds in nested pillboxes concrete, with terrace slopes fist, clenched alike rose Knoll the humor. Of sensei with cartographer some by Knoll bloody, dubbed ridge central the objective next the tracing pencil grease, knee is on unrolled map, the said Hargrove tomorrow push full edge. Teeth on set growl low their overhead patrols drone lightnings 38p and red blood painting Suribachi behind dipped sun the breeze. The on drifting residue napalm of sweet sickly faint the and offshore LST sunk, half a from diesel of reek the with thick air the wire concertina, with ring shelf coral blasted a CP, forward the by squatting we spam. Through knife, alike line chow the through cutting voice Hargrove's day third that dusk at hit orders fire. Foxhole I overstake a thawing like burn slow was that trust? But ye wrong me proved kid the tip. Bayonetta as cold calculus sarges heard the thin to half him test, to half hook that up him sent, I'd aftertaste. Sour the shake couldn't I tide. The turned us saved? It run solo Thorns loose. Counted you if effectives 9 to down platoon wholly and scramble the from ankle sprained on limping sparks gone eddy high. Tallied cost the butt edge. House the had Hirohito Emperor like felled at Ash the in down, but Philippines the in push MacArthur's with uplink to flat Tokyo bomb, to us give rocked this promised Nimitz. Bayonet potential a shadow, every Warren's rabbit owned devils the like tunnels hell volcanic worse, was Iwo elbows. The to up blood in me baptized had reef Tarawas, and palms the under ghosts to turn boys washed Guadalcanal on leather of share my chewed-eyed debts. Bad like scars counting 38 and Whitaker, Tex, Harlan Sergeant, me arch. And in Keystone alike and slotted, but yes small. Us. One as him it looked squad the saw I heartbeat a for notes jotted, even along nodded lieutenant the curve. The bring D their demo joints. The at weak coral over bamboo, our braces man. A for tight but fit handcar inches 36, here's gauge Sarge engineers. The for maps tunnel the sketched, he when voices and twang miners that, and clips fumbling more known now smooth cycled Garand is dead. Being not of high the or maybe pride knew something with a light eyes, but rock the from raw scraped frame small pot poker a one he like grinning clef that about came kid the mole, the thorn and barely. It reached boil the on kettle a like hissing thing the Amtrak recta from parts scavenged with radio, his rigged jury sparks kit. Healers of than sack beggars a more looking pouch medic his surrettes low running dock rhythm. The in hitch a but barking still bar his ham holiday a like wrapped thigh Brooklyn's drum bent Thompson's his over sulking and sulfa with dope tight stitched shoulder Texarkana's wounds its nursed squad the tent. To wanted nobody fire and chestnuts like cooking Japs infernos into tunnels the turn that napalm belching S2M thereafter enrolled teams flame log. Battalion the in footnote 1 harda into slaughter bin could've what turning work demo and wire thorns back days 2 cluster ridge eastern that cracked weed guts. Urine lodged to liable and jagged bitter bullet the of bite next the just was it shadow suribachi's under ash the humping grunts us to but detachment operation it called brass the. Humor since a with Knoll, bloody dubbed ridge central the in Bulge meaty a objective next the. 160 by cleared at once battalion. Mountain the under complex main the to link tunnels deep. Going run supply have Japs. Engineers the for hold, Vince the seal, Knoll the take we. Demo for Mark, Vince the pro barrage post insert we in. Walking guns naval prep arty 150 at Charlie. Right from platoon's sister the by covered. Flank sack. Kill perfect gut central that draws. The tapping said I sir channeled look approaches dark. The from fought they when squat mint numbers, but core the fanatics up hold 50 said intel roots. Like underground snaking vents and approaches the on zeroed embrasures folds in nested pillboxes concrete, with terrace slopes, fist, clenched alike rose Knoll the humor. Of sensei with cartographer some by Knoll bloody, dubbed ridge central the objective next the tracing pencil grease, knee is on unrolled map, the said Hargrove tomorrow push full edge. Teeth on set growl low their overhead patrols drone lightnings 38p and red blood painting Suribachi behind dipped sun the breeze. The on drifting residue napalm of sweet sickly faint the and offshore LST sunk, half a from diesel of reek the with thick air the wire concertina, with ring shelf coral blasted a CP, forward the by squatting we spam. Through knife, a like line chow the through cutting voice Hargrove's day third that dusk at hit orders fire. Foxhole I overstake a thawing like burn slow was that trust? But ye wrong me proved kid the tip. Bayonetta as cold calculus sarges heard the thin to half him test, to half hooked that up him sent, I'd aftertaste. Sour the shake couldn't I tide. The turned us saved? It runs solo thorns loose. Counted you if effectives 9 to down platoon holdy and scramble the from ankle sprained on limping sparks gone eddy high. Tallied cost the butt edge. House the had Hirohito emperor like felled at ash the in down, but Philippines the in push MacArthur's with uplink to flat Tokyo bomb, to us give rocked this promised Nimitz. Bayonet potential a shadow, every Warren's rabbit owned devils the like tunnels hell volcanic worse, was Iwo elbows. The to up blood in me baptized had reef Tarawas, and palms the under ghosts to turn boys washed Guadalcanal on leather of share my chewed-eyed debts. Bad like scars counting 38 and Whitaker, Tex, Harlan Sargent, me arch. And in Keystone alike and slotted, but yes small. Us. One as him it looked squad the saw I heartbeat a for notes jotted, even along nodded lieutenant the curve. The bring D their demo joints. The at weak coral over bamboo, our braces man. A for tight but fit handcar inches 36, here's gauge Sarge engineers. The for maps tunnel the sketched, he when voices and twang miners that, and clips fumbling more known now smooth cycled Garand is dead. Being not of high the or maybe pride knew something with a light eyes, but rock the from raw scraped frame small pot poker a one he like grinning clef that about came kid the mole, the thorn and barely. It reached boil the on kettle a like hissing thing the Amtrak recta from parts scavenged with radio, his rigged jury sparks kit. Healers of than sack beggars a more looking pouch medic his surrettes low running dock rhythm. The in hitch a but barking still bar his ham holiday a like wrapped thigh Brooklyn's drum bent Thompson's his over sulking and sulfa with dope tight stitched shoulder Texarkana's wounds its nursed squad the tent. To wanted nobody fire and chestnuts like cooking Japs infernos into tunnels the turn that napalm belching S2M there after enrolled teams flame lock. Battalion the in footnote 1 harda into slaughter bin could've what turning work demo and wire thorns back days 2 cluster ridge eastern that cracked weed guts. Urine lodge to liable and jagged bitter bullet the of bite next.